Welcome to part 2, and I'm delighted to say some more components have arrived for this amplifier project. If you don't know what I'm talking about, may I suggest you look for part 1, and incredibly entertaining and informative you will find it. Well, my wife thought it was anyway. Right, what you're looking at here is a heatsink. No prize for guessing what that was. There are two of these, one on each side of the cabinet, and to my delight they are excellent. Aluminium, black anodized finish. Now clearly these were designed for another project and there are holes pre-drilled here. Unfortunately they don't fit a module. If I bring one of the modules up to it, there is no way that they will mount in there. And originally I thought, bearing in mind that only one module is going to be used on each heatsink, that could be made to fit there. But the problem is the holes here are larger and they're already pre-tapped, which is wonderful in some respects, but the holes are bigger than the holes in the transistors, and obviously I can't drill out the holes in the transistor. Well, maybe if you're braver than me you probably can, but I wouldn't want to. And anyway, the module is actually going to sit in a different position. Ideally, of course, it would be in the center, but it's going to be off to one side slightly because this space will be taken up in the chassis with the power supply. Because the heatsink fins are so close together, there is no space to get a nut or a screw through there, which is the way I mounted it on the previous heatsink. So I have got to re-drill and tap the hole for M3. And again you'd think, well, that's not really a major issue, except you wouldn't believe the problems I've had here in New Zealand trying to get an M3 tap. First of all, when you go to the shops, they point you to the place where the bathrooms are because they don't know what a tap and die set is. One thing I forgot to mention is, as per usual with my videos, all of this equipment I've purchased with my own money and nothing was supplied free, and I'm not on any commission or money making schemes at all. So the way I see it is the way I tell it. I have to also say that the cabinet came in a kit form, it wasn't pre-assembled, and the packing of it was some of the best I've ever seen on eBay. Each piece came wrapped in something like cling film, and then some outer packing and bubble wrap, and then the whole thing was in a polystyrene box, which was in a cardboard box. So 100% marks for the shipper. Right, now this is the rear panel, and as you can see I've started to assemble it. The socket here, the main socket, which also contains a fuse, is actually supplied with the kit. So that was one thing less I had to buy. The speaker terminals aren't supplied, and in fact nor were these gold-plated phono sockets. Now this is one item that was supplied, but not quite as you see it. All it is basically is a relay board, and it links via this cable to the front panel. More of that in a minute. And it's basically, it just selects which of the three phonos you're using. And all I've done with it so far is linked all the earth pins from the phonos and earthed it to the main PCB, but not earthed to the chassis itself. This is the front panel. The on-off switch was supplied with this kit, and I'll show you the back in a minute. And this is the module that feeds that back panel module. Again, I'll show you in a minute. And it's basically a push button and 3 red LEDs. That's supplied, included in the kit. Now the piece at the front here is where the volume control will go. This is the volume knob supplied, solid aluminium. Needless to say, nothing fits. But we have ways of getting around this. Problem number 1. This is the potentiometer I've purchased to act as a volume control, and it's basically a very simple 10k log dual gang pot. So the problem here is this doesn't fit in there. So we're going to have to drill that out. It's only a fraction to do, but it nevertheless has to be drilled out. And the other, well, actually it isn't a problem, it's rather good. You can see the fixing hole there. No screw is there. There's no little grub screw. But in the kit, at the time of unpacking, I looked inside and there are a fairly generous range of nuts and bolts, and I thought, whatever, there's actually about half a dozen of these supplied, and I couldn't for the life of me think where they would go. And it's only when I came to mess about with the volume control knob I realised that that's the grub screw, because imagine going into a shop and asking for one of those. I'm glad I don't have to go there. On the back of the front panel is the mains on-off switch. It's not a terribly good quality one, but we shall see. It has to be mounted on pillars, as you can see there, which luckily were supplied. This is the module that I showed you from the front. Underneath here are the 3 LEDs, and that multi-way cable which I showed you from the back panel goes into there or there. At this moment I can't remember which. Now strangely enough, this needs AC to work, because if you look here you can see there's a rectifier, a bridge rectifier, and I would imagine that's probably a transistor purely to stabilize it down to whatever it happens to work on. And there's also a multi-terminal chip here which does the action. And the idea is you press the little button on the front panel and it moves along to the next input and it operates the relay. This was all included in the kit. I'm hoping if I can look round the circuit and feed DC straight in after just after the bridge rectifier, because I have 12 volts available from the power supply that I've shown you in the previous video, rather than having to get a transformer, because obviously there's no 12 volts AC on the switch mode power supply. So a little bit of experimentation is required there. Here are some of the other things which you normally have to buy, of course, but you don't have to, because these are all included. Some rather nice rubber feet, which really are rubbery smell. As soon as I opened the box, there was this overwhelming smell of rubber, and it just is these little feet. These are the main screws for screwing the cabinet together, and there's various standoffs. These little standoffs here are sort of included in the kit, but they are double the length of that. And initially I couldn't see how to mount these, because the mounting, if you think about it, is quite critical, because there are the LEDs, or 2 of them, well 3 of them, sticking through, and they have to stick through to the front panel that you can just about see there. And the set terminal has to be just the right height that it sticks through without rubbing, and you have to be able to click it to make the thing work. So it took me probably half an hour to get the right size, and you can see here this side is very critical, because the positioning of that push button on that small switch is critical, and I've ended up padding it off with a couple of washers on this side. The other side isn't so critical, and so an estimation of how much I needed was just fine. Now, this wasn't supplied in the kit. I've just been down to J-Car to purchase this. Originally it was going to be the LED above the on-off switch, which isn't supplied, and I thought, as the other LEDs are red, I would contrast this with a blue LED. But to my horror, they wanted $3.90, that's New Zealand dollars of course, for a small one-off LED that size. I ended up buying a red LED, but that was 90 cents. Now, that is still a horrific price for a single LED, but I didn't really want to have to wait 3 weeks to buy probably 50 for $1 from Alibaba or one of those such companies. This is approximately how I plan to fit the equipment into the box. Nothing is set up, it's just leaning there so I can give you some idea. That's the back panel. This is the switch mode power supply. And in fact, in reality, it will be around the other way, but this gives you a guide to the layout. And here is one of the amplifiers, and that's where it will go, but more in the middle of the heatsink. And the other one will go here on the other heatsink. Now, somewhere in there I may have to move this down yet, because I still haven't received the anti-noise, or what do you call it, module that isolates the speaker on switch on. That hasn't arrived yet, so I don't really know how or where I'm going to fit it. I suspect there could be enough room in the center here. This is what's left of my original lash up system, which is slowly being removed. The heatsink I've decided I will use together with the load resistors, which again I showed you in the last video, so that as soon as this is all put together, we can start doing some serious tests on it. So look out for part 3, hopefully not too far away, and we can start doing some good stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching and your interest.